want to hear the story about how your mother and father met. It sounds like a very interesting and a different way of meeting.
It is such a different way, and that's why we had to write the book. And I can't help thinking, we've got to do a movie.
No, you must.
Because I can picture one or two scenes. I think I'm going to have to cast somebody like Marianne Cotillard. You know, that beautiful dark-haired girl with those big eyes. And Santa was so beautiful. She is still beautiful. She's just got it. She's one of those incredible natural beauties, almost like Marlene Dietrich when she was young. That symmetry, that refinement. And so I think Marianne Cotillard or Juliette Binoche, somebody continental, because my mom is, who can capture all those different cultures and accents. But what actually happened was, she was a refugee after running from terrible situation in Germany and hiding in Spain. They got caught in the Spanish Civil War, as if it hadn't been bad enough in Germany. And they were afraid, so they ran again. When I say ran, I mean walk on highways with knapsacks on your back. I mean go by train. I mean take a boat which you didn't know where it was going. And they kept stopping her father and brother, eldest brother, because they were old enough to be in the army. So it was really rough times. They fled anyway. Lorries, sleeping on the spiral steps of a church, just falling asleep from exhaustion. Hard times, and hiding in the countryside. She landed up in Paris, and they met a family there by an incredible coincidence, which you'll see when you come. And the lady there, her name was Renia Putterflam. She met my mom. She saw this incredibly beautiful, articulate lady, and she immediately thought of a young man that she knew of, that she was slightly related to, who was now living in Salisbury, Rhodesia. He was born in Poland and had traveled around Europe himself, trying to find a way to survive. He was now in Rhodesia, and she put them together in her mind. And she said, "You've got to write to this man." And my mother said, "I don't know, I don't want to." She wrote to him, and he wrote back and said, "I want to marry you." This is before he'd even seen her, clever man. And if you marry me, he wrote in this first letter, I will give you, I will buy you a new pair of shoes, I will buy you a dress, and I will buy you a cinema ticket.
Oh.
So my mother thought, who is this? And she thought sense of humor, and although she wasn't keen, life was so hard in France. They weren't allowed to work because they were refugees. They were starving. They were starving. And the parents kept being, and the brothers kept being arrested because they were working without a permit. Times were very hard. And as it turned out, the rest of them were taken to Auschwitz, which is a most horrific story. So she said yes, and she went. She went, this brave, beautiful, sad lady went from, with a deprived youth, hiding, running. She went from Marseille, she took a boat, and went via Genoa through the Suez Canal to Beira, and from Beira by train. And she went to meet the stranger. And on the train, the night before she met him, she put her hair in curls and put some cold cream in her face, on her face, because she was meeting her future husband the next day, and he couldn't wait. So what he did was he went from Salisbury, and he took a train and met her train. He got on in the middle of the night and said to the conductor, where's the Santa, where's the Santa? And they knocked on her door in the middle of the night. And she opened, this is the movie part, can you see it opening? And there she was with her cold cream and her hair in curlers. And there was this sweet, short man holding some flowers, which he pinched from the dining car. And they both looked at each other in absolute horror and aghast. And that's how they met.
What an incredible love story.
Amazing. It wasn't love
totally
at first sight.
But
you know, they grew together, and they were, it is actually an amazing story. It's
unbelievable.
It's unbelievable.
It's just unbelievable.
And 63 years marriage, and three girls, although she lost her first one, So hard things, but I think the two of them had both had hard lives. They were both kind of casualties of life at the time. And they so needed shelter and safety and a home. And they gave it to each other. With their Jewishness, I think, glued them together. The fact that their families had died just because they were Jewish. How cruel is that? And with the music, lot of music coming out of both of them. And they made a beautiful family for us. I felt safe. I felt loved. There was humor, Took her a long time because she's German. It takes a German a long time to develop a sense of humor, and we've got her now. She's amazing. She is actually a phenomenal woman, and I feel so honored that I've had this opportunity. I feel so privileged that I've had this opportunity to honor her by showing her story. And although, of course, it's personal, I do feel that everybody with their own story, and they have one, can resonate with hers. This feeling of having to run, this feeling of not belonging, this feeling of being outcast, hated, not being able to survive, and it's all over the world now again.
Yeah.
Still.
The show's toured Helsinki, London. It's showed in South Africa and various cities, and I've heard that you get a standing ovation every time.
You know, it's very moving, and I think it's the music. I think it's Santa. Yeah, we do, and I feel so privileged that we can share that story. We also went to Germany. Can you imagine coming full circle and going back to where she was born, with people in the audience who possibly were children and grandchildren of possibly some of the perpetrators of who arrested my grandfather, how some of them were very bad and evil to this and many other families, and others who were good. So it was an amazing experience for me to go back to Germany, where they named a street after my mother's parents who were murdered. So the Germans are really taking it on. They're wanting to reconcile. They're wanting to show it and to tell the public we must never forget what happened. A very cultured, brilliant nation. That's what happened in Germany. It suddenly became a monster of the worst proportions.
What was it like for you to be back in Germany, portraying your mother? I mean, being in that mindset.
At first, I found it very difficult. I was uncomfortable. It's not that I'm unforgiving. It's just that the history is so terrible. It was difficult. And while I was rehearsing in Cape Town, I kept thinking to myself, think about it. You'll be in Germany. Who's in the audience? You know, we mentioned that they had to flee. And when she came back years later and found the house, she said to the lady, "Who lives here now?" And it was her housekeeper, and she said, "I do." That housekeeper had moved in the next day. So everybody in the audience was looking around to think, who was the housekeeper? Because they knew the area. It was uncomfortable for me at first, but I need to say that there were many people who went out of their way to listen and bear witness and take it on and share it. There were some amazing people who came to me after the show to say, "Please, you have to hear what I have to say. We are so ashamed. We are so devastated. We would like you, we beg you, tell your mother, Germany has changed." And I was very moved by these personal accounts.
Yeah.
There was a day while I was there performing, because we also performed in Cologne, which was All Saints' Day. And obviously they light candles to the saints. And several people came up to me after the show and said, "I lit a candle for your grandfather. I lit a candle for your grandmother and for your uncle." And these are not Jewish people. There was nobody Jewish in the audience. I was very moved.